Hey everyone, Dave here again. I'm hanging out here at Righteous Garage, and I just wanted to do a what's in my bag video and show you what I carry around with me most of the time and what I bring to most shoots. Seems a little excessive, but I'd rather have the gear with me, so I generally bring it with me to every shoot and lug it around and just deal with lugging it around. So what I'll do is I'll clear off this table a little bit. We'll bring the bag up on the table, and then I'll put everything back in the bag, where it goes and what it is. So this is my Think Tank Airport Security. I chose this bag because it's a roller bag, which necessity, you don't gotta carry your stuff around, and it fits in most overhead compartments of planes. North American trips, anyways. I've carried it a few places North American wise and internationally. Internationally, it's never been an issue, but some have restrictions that it doesn't fit. So Think Tank actually has a few smaller bags that will do that better. But I chose to use this one just due to its size and what I was carrying around at the time. My main body is a Nikon D4 DSLR. This is a couple of years old Nikon Pro body. And like I said in my first video, I don't generally like to buy the latest and greatest gear, but this is still a great camera, and it's a few years old. So this guy goes up here, and it fits in there nicely. And then I've always learned that you should always have a backup. I have a Nikon D3s, which I would always have as a backup, and then I've got another Nikon D3s. Generally, the way I've always functioned is I have my two main bodies here and then an extra spare body here. So this one eventually will probably be replaced with a D4. So I'm used to the same buttons and same configurations. I'm not fumbling around too much, but then you've always got a third sort of worst case scenario. Like I said, I'd rather have it with me than it not be there. This kind of started off as my video body back when it was a decent video body. It's stored over here. This is just a Nikon D5100. It's pretty old now, but it's always a nice little camera to have if I need a little camera. And from there, lens wise, I've got a 70-200 lens, which is sort of this is actually my only zoom lens. It's sort of a tried, tested, and true lens. It's a 70-200 2.8 VR nano coated Nikon lens. I think it's version 2 of the 70-200. It's actually a new to me lens anyways. I just got this fairly recently. I upgraded my 80-200 2.8 non-VR lens, which I'm excited to try this out and start using this a bit more. I've got the Nikkor 105 macro lens. It's a 2.8 nano coated as well. It's got the VR. It's kind of mandatory for macro anyways, but this is actually a pretty versatile lens. I use this a lot for shooting in general. It's a great focal length. The VR really helps in lower light situations or tricky situations. So I've used this a fair bit actually for things other than macro. With a macro lens anyways, you're tending to be a very sharp lens. So it's great. The only downside is it's got a variable aperture based on how close you are to your subject. So it won't always be a 2.8, but in most cases it is a 2.8. It slides in over here. That's a lie. It slides in up here. Next, I got an 85mm lens. This is an 85mm 1.8 Nikkor lens, and it's been a great lens. It's an old lens. I've had it for a really long time. It is a non-AFS lens, so that means it uses the camera bodies to focus. It doesn't work on all the newer cameras that just have the AFS motors built into the lenses. It slides in just next to the slides in right next to the 105. Then from there, this is sort of where my camera bag switches to Sigma. And my first Sigma lens is a 50mm 1.4 Sigma Art lens. This is a fixed focal length as well. So it's just a great all-around lens. 50mm 1.4, it kind of does everything. It's my go-to lens. If I don't know what I'm shooting, I'll throw on the 50mm and carry it around and have it with me because it kind of does a little bit of everything. I've always shot with a 50mm since my first camera. That's what I had on my body, so I always shoot with it. So right from there, I have a 35mm. So this is another new lens I just got over the winter, so I haven't really shot too much with it. It's a 35mm 1.4 Sigma Art lens. I'm excited to start using this guy. I haven't had that sort of in between 35mm for some time now. I'm excited to start using a little bit of wide angle, a little longer focal length, so it would be decent for portraits as well. It'd be a nice flexible lens, all around lens, I think. After that, we got the 24mm 1.4 Sigma art lens. Between the 50mm and the 24mm, it's always those are my two main camera lenses. If I'm walking around a car show, I usually have the 24mm and the 50mm. Then I've got my wide angle, I've got my standard focal length, and I'm set. And then I don't really need anything else other than that. Around, slides in right there, beside the 35. And then the last but not the least, that's for sure, is a Nikon fisheye lens. So this guy was one of the first lenses I bought. Shooting skateboarding, this was like my main lens. And it's shot a lot of things. It's fallen down a lot of stairs, and it's taken off a lot of abuse, but it's still working great. So fisheye is an extreme wide angle. It's 180 degrees view on a full frame camera. So these are great for those, I mean, it's great for skateboarding. It's great for BMX. It's great for those really sort of wide angle room shots that you get in some situations, but I love it. I used to shoot cars with it a bit more because I loved it so much. The owners of the cars generally don't love it unless they have some sort of background in skateboarding or BMX. So it slides in there. That's all the lenses I do shoot with, and they all get shot with a fair bit. I wouldn't say I shoot one too much more than the other, but they all have their purpose. I actually shoot all minus one lens, all fixed lenses. I've always been a fixed lens quality kind of guy, and then if I need to zoom in or zoom out, I just physically move or I change my lens. But I haven't had that sort of standard zoom or the wide angle zoom. I always leave it up to fixed lenses. Again, I don't mind carrying around the stuff if I'm going to use it, and then I have it with me if I need to use it. So from there, we go into my flash gear. A lot of people are intimidated by flashes. I personally love them, and I shoot with them a lot. They were a main thing you needed in skateboarding photography, especially at night. So I got really used to using them, and I'm very comfortable with flash now. A lot of the questions I get from friends now is about flash photography because it's a little intimidating to start with. I actually have two SB-800s. I used to have 4 SB-800s, but over the years had some issues. A couple of them broke, so I haven't replaced them. But I've got two SB-800s. It was the Nikon flagship flash. Again, not the newest, greatest gear, but it works, and I trust it, and they do their job. They've got the extra battery for faster recycle time. They've got the flash sync ports into them. I like using these little diffusers when needed. It's great for live music. Use these a lot for live music, just to diffuse the light a little bit. And then I've got an SB-80DX, which is very similar. It just doesn't have the 5th battery door, but it still has the sync built into the side of it. One thing I did do with my flashes back in the day, because of flash duration, if you know anything about that, we can talk about that in the video, but I actually have some Velcro on each flash, so you can pair up 2 flashes to be 1 flash head. So you can run both at half power instead of full power, and then the flash duration is much shorter, so it's much better for action photography using flashes. And then lastly, I've got sort of a backup SB-24, which is, I haven't used it too much, it's just there for if I need it. You can never have too many backups. So all the flashes are here beside my big zoom lens. Usually most lighting setups are a 3-light setup, and then you kind of go from there. But it's always nice to have a little backup or be able to mix it up or throw in an extra accent light or backlight or hair light, whatever it may be. And I also have an SU-800, which is a control unit for the SB-800s. I haven't used this too much actually. I bought this with the SB-800s thinking I would use them a lot more, but I ended up getting some PocketWizards, which we'll talk about next. And this hasn't got used much, but this is actually pretty cool. Via infrared, it will control all the SB-800s, and I'm pretty sure all the new flashes as well. It will tell them all the settings to be, and you can do sort of a A/B sort of lighting setup and control one light over the other light, and you don't actually have to go up to the flash and change it. But I became sort of manual in the sense of I would prefer to shoot full manual and physically go to the flash and change settings. A little bit more work, but it tends to be a little bit more reliable. The infrared didn't like water or objects being in the middle of you and your flashes, so it became a little difficult. That's why I switched to PocketWizard Plus IIs. So these guys are transceivers units. So that means you can hook them up to the camera or you can hook them up to the flash. But then they communicate together. So when the camera fires, it fires your flashes at the exact time. These guys are good for like, I don't know, 1,500 feet. I've never ran into any distance problems. They work over the water. I've never ran into an issue where my flash didn't fire when I wanted it to fire unless my batteries are dead. So they actually just slide in here on the side of the big zoom lens. And then lastly, I got a light meter. I haven't used this really in years, but I refuse to throw it out. This guy is so I can measure light. I can measure the light from the flashes, and then it will tell me what aperture to use. So you don't waste as much film if you're shooting film. So thus, I haven't really used it much with digital, but I just refuse to throw it out because it took me a long time to buy that guy. So then up here on the top, actually, you've got a few compartments as well. In here, I've got all my off-camera flash cords. So these are I use the Nikon SC-17 for my off-camera flash cords. They've been great. Again, they're older, but they do the trick, and I trust them. So they've stuck around. I've got a circular polarizer for situations, and then my PocketWizard cables are also in here. They're just your typical Nikon screw sync to the headphone to an 1/8 inch jack. Then up here, I've got my wireless remote for any sort of off-camera work. A couple batteries for that, and then I got some more polarizers and some more cables for the doubling up of the flash heads. On this side here, I've got a couple memory card holders, and then my spare batteries always go up in here. I can fit 4 spare batteries up in here, and then we've got a pocket up here that can be for any sort of accessories. I usually throw some AA batteries in there and go from there with that. All right, that's it. That's my camera bag. Thanks for watching. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. It helps out. Every little bit helps. And we'll see you next time.